Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Colorado. Hi, Brooklyn. Hope all is good over there. Are you in the fires? Oh my gosh. You know what? I was told today that I am echoey. So, hello, Louisiana. All right, I'm gonna put my headset in. I think that might be better and not so echoey. Um, Hey, Christina, are you guys in line for the hurricane? Oh my gosh. I have clients all over the country, and between Iowa and the hurricane and the fires, we're watching the country to make sure our clients are okay. And so, thinking about all of you because we're paying attention over here. Hey, Mark. Illinois, Northeast Colorado, no fires here, just smoke. Oh, good. Awesome. Okay, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. Now, I did an event and I don't know what I'm doing. I got to figure this whole Facebook Live. I'm trying to schedule it out. And so I don't know if I go live, if it says, hey, notify me if Mary Jo goes live, click yes on there. And then you'll get a notification when I go live if you want to join live. Otherwise, obviously, there's always a replay. And so I have heard awesome things about everybody loving these and getting a lot of beneficial information out of them. So I am happy to continue doing them. Except, let's be honest, I don't like being dressed up till 8:30 at night. Someday I'm going to come in my sweatshirt. Coming through at category 1 rate over us, no power, but all is well. Okay, well, no power for us means crisis mode, but I suppose if you're in Louisiana, it's not your first rodeo, is it? Gosh, I'm glad that you guys are okay. No wind damage or fires, but really dry. Northeast Iowa. Yes, I have heard that you guys are dry. Glad that you did not get hit with the wind damage. Hey, Jeremy from North Dakota. How are you? All right, let's get started. I know these take a long time, so I appreciate you hanging in there. But please do, if you have questions, please let me know. I will absolutely try to get to those along the way. But let's start the week. So I'm gonna look over here because all my notes are on my other monitor a little bit. I was just doing notes as it came to 8:30. But my first client was a dairy farmer in New York, and a dairy farmer that is making money. So we had a lot to talk about, so I didn't get to as many details as I would have normally liked to get to. But he's in his mid to late 50s, and so he really wants to just figure out how to kind of transition out of there. But they bought the dairy from their dad, and they had a plan to do so. So they bought the cows and the barn and the equipment first, and then they bought the land. And I wish I could have had a little more time with him to say, hey, how come you guys are making a profit? What did you do when dairy prices were great, right? Like, why are you making so much more money than anybody else? But nonetheless, that was a great conversation. And he doesn't have any kids that necessarily want to come back. And he's farming with his brother, who doesn't really have any kids that want to come back either. The kids love the dairy, but they're like, Dad, we don't want to work as hard as you do. So no thanks. We like our job in town, which is fine because a neighbor kid wants to take over. So they're looking at, we talked a lot about how do we make that transition? How do we make it easy for that guy? Owner financing him, giving him some, because they don't have any loans except a chopper. So they're doing really, really well. But how can we kind of bless this young kid and say, hey, we have time for you to get started because we're only in our 50s. And, you know, we're ready to be done. The brother that I talk to does all the finances. The other brother, he would rather be outside working, right? I don't want to say he's just a laborer because you need both. They're equally as important. And so he's outside doing what he's good at while the brother is okay doing the finances. And they've already transitioned everything over from dad. So that was a fun conversation. In addition to the fact that he has a ton of whole life insurance. And it was really interesting because he has life insurance with a mutual company, a pretty big mutual company. And they tried to sell him universal life a couple years ago. And he said, no, the numbers just don't make sense. I'm going to stick to whole life. He has over $200,000 of cash value. And guess what? The life insurance agent said, no, don't borrow from the policy. Because he's like, well, why wouldn't I borrow from the policy? And he did. He bought a new farm because that he kind of wants to transition to live there, right? And he used some of his cash value for a down payment. So that's fantastic. That, you know, at least he knew enough before he even read the book. He knew enough to do that. So on him, are we going to start any life insurance? Not right now, probably. He's got a lot. He just started another policy that he can put more money into. So could have I said, yeah, you need to have more life insurance? Yep, I sure could have. But why not max out what he already has? It can only make sense. It was already started. He was able to put a little more in. The downside of all of that is the company that he has it with has a standard loan rate of 8%. And so, however you want to look at that. I mean, anything you go now to the banks, it's a little bit less expensive. But if he wants control of that loan, who cares if it's 8%? He has control of the loan. Sometimes that is worth 30%, right? So nobody is breathing down your neck. So definitely a very awesome conversation with him and super fun to see that he already had a ton of whole life. It is very rare for me to see that. It happens, but for the amount of people that I talk to in a week, it's very rare for me to see that. Okay. All right, I don't see any more comments coming in, so I'm just gonna keep going. The next guy I had, it was just a young guy. He is starting with, like, I had two of these guys this week, starting with like 160 acres-ish, farming with dad, so getting paid from dad's operation to help dad. And he's starting a little bit on his own. He is renting dad's equipment, but he has his own operating note. So he's doing all the operating on himself on his own, but he is renting dad's equipment. So he still has that expense. What I have seen, and it's kind of crazy, in the last couple of weeks, I've had quite a few of these young guys renting dad's equipment. What a great way to get started, but also be honest to dad and say, I'm putting hours on that tractor or that combine or whatever it is, I am going to pay for that. Because if we're not paying dad for it, how do we know if we're actually making the money, right? And he has a rental property. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And it was only weird because I could tell the guy just loved farming. Like, he wasn't looking for other avenues of income. So I thought, well, that's kind of weird. So I asked him, I said, well, was that a house you lived in before you got married? Yep, sure was. So they decided, well, I'm just going to rent it out and see if I can make some money. And if we like it, and if we don't like it, then we're going to sell it. But if all works well, we'll just continue to rent it out. So if you have a house in town and you don't need to sell it to get to the new place, well, fantastic. Rent it out. See if you want to be a landlord. it's a great opportunity to try it and see how it goes, because I have a lot of farmers that have rental property outside of the farm. And that's a great cash flow coming in when we don't have a lot of cash flow on bad years, right? Hey, Lindsay. Hey, Robert. Robert, it is as dry here as it was in the 80s as well. Like, we're breaking some records. We finally got some sprinkles today. Nothing more than like 1000s, but it was ridiculous. Then I talked to another guy who was in his late 40s, and he had a feedlot operation, sold the feedlot operation, now running the feedlot, getting paid to do so. But he is doing, instead of just buying, I mean, he's got some cow-calf pairs as well, and just some stock cows, but he is also doing what is called the buy-sell marketing. Bud Williams. I think it's Bud Williams. I have 4 guys I've talked to now that are doing that the buy-sell marketing method from, I'm pretty sure it was Bud Williams. And it is very interesting. And all of these guys are making money, right? They're paying attention to the markets. They're buying cows. They're buying underweight cows. They're feeding them out. They're selling them, or they're just transferring them from one place to another. They are not holding them. They're not trying to create herds. They're not trying to do purebred operations. And it's actually working. Granted, there's a learning curve there, and there's a lot of learning to do. However, what I find interesting out of this whole thing is the banks hate it. All of these guys have a really hard time getting money from the banks. And this guy in the same situation. He could obviously he's making money. I mean, his gross income, and he doesn't have a lot of inputs because he's not really feeding them out. He was making a profit, and the bank does not care. And so he is trying to figure out, where am I going to get money? Or how am I going to buy this ranch next door? And he did put an offer in on the ranch, and I don't remember the exact details of how he got that ranch purchased. But he at least got the ranch purchased, and this method of marketing, buying, selling cows is fantastic. Because before he was running a feedlot, and very iffy, right? But the bank will give you money for a feedlot. Doesn't make any sense to me. I am sure because it's just we're buying them and selling them and buying them and selling them. But if I buy them, there's still money. I mean, the bank can then sell them. So there's obviously a risk there for the bank that I don't quite understand, or they just don't understand the method because it's not the traditional way of doing things, right? It's like horses. They don't understand equine. They want nothing to do with it. I also talked to a gentleman today, or this week, that is doing a lot of sheep stuff, and the banks don't understand sheep and goats either. So, all right, next up, let's see. Hey, Heidi. Hey, Jenny, I do remember talking to you, and I'm not typically good with names, but a G instead of a J. Texas Panhandle, very dry, very hot. Hey, Lori, yeah, is the Panhandle ever not dry? I thought that was just part of the Texas Panhandle, like desert. Okay, who do we have next? Oh, I had a great conversation with a wonderful lady who, her and her husband own a business. And guess what? COVID shut them down. And so they thought, well, what a better time to start a dairy. So they bought 4 cows. Yep, 4. I love these small operations just as much as I love the big ones. So they bought 4 cows, and they are selling raw milk and butter. So as I was talking to her, she was making butter, and then they've got some chickens, and they're going to be selling some eggs. But she started this in April, May-ish, and she does not have enough milk for the people that want raw milk or fresh butter. So that was very cool. And she has just been doing advertising on Facebook and doing the local farmers markets. And she's delivering. So very cool. But I also learned that bottles, because I said, why, are you using bottles? Yep, she's using bottles. She's re-sanitizing them. But oh my goodness, she said the freight to get her bottles was like $400. Probably because they're so heavy and she maybe didn't need a certain bulk or whatever, but I've often wondered why we have so much plastic and why we don't just go back to bottles and sanitize them, right? But that's probably why. So anyway, that was really interesting. And they have their business. Here's something that farmers can do as well. Doesn't matter if you're a business owner of a non-farm business or if you are a farmer. They own the vehicles personally and they lease them back to the business. Okay, so you could own the vehicles personally and lease them to the farm if you wanted to do that. And that's what they're doing. So what does that do is it takes the liability. There's some liability differences there. And it moves the liability to, well, if it's used for farm purposes, I guess then it's going to be on the farm side. But yeah, that's probably right. I'm, again, not an attorney, but I do believe I've heard that from an attorney. So remember, you can have an entity even that owns the equipment and leases it back to the farm, right? Is it more paperwork? Yes, it sure is. But I believe that you're going to do that for liability purposes. They also, for some of you, this might be good information. I did not know this until I talked to her. They hired a lady to do their health insurance. And according to the health insurance, they qualified for the government health insurance. I forget what it's called. Anyway, guess what? The lady did it wrong. So they paid in every month for that insurance. Then they find out that the lady did it wrong. And now they have to pay $30,000 for health insurance. That's like $3,000. It was like 30,000. It was like 3,300 a month is what it came out to be. She went to Good Samaritan Ministries or some kind of ministries, health co-op type thing. And it is $300 a month. And she was paying $800 a month to the government one at a deal. So please make sure their accountant didn't say anything. That lady didn't say anything. It's sad that you can't trust everybody to understand the rules, but not everybody understands the rules. So make sure, even if you have to get a second opinion on some of that stuff, make sure that you're doing that. I have good friends that sell health insurance, and it is complicated. Like they specialize. I have a friend that they actually in their office, there's a couple of them that specialize in specific things because it can get so complicated. So that was really sad to hear. And it's just unfortunate. And I hope that she can somehow figure out how to get that rectified. But FYI, if you have a business, the business income matters. And the Blue Cross Blue Shield lady did not know that. Okay. What else we got here? I have another young couple that both work off the farm. They both have off the farm incomes, and they too are farming, starting with 130 acres. Bought it from dad, and some of it dad is financing and some of it FSA is financing. Now I said, why didn't dad just finance all of it for you? Like, that's kind of funny. Why would he give up that interest? Well, because dad wanted to pay cash for his house. in town, right? Because dad moved to town. So I said, well, but if dad would have financed you, and it would have, if that payment would have been enough to make his house payment, you basically would have been making his house payment for him. So what does that matter, right? Dad could have charged 4%. His house payment or his house mortgage maybe was 3.1 if they just did it, and you were making dad's payment. So why go to FSA? Because dad's probably going to be a lot easier to work with. I get the thought process there, and sometimes we just have to. But do we think out that far that my payment for dad would have covered his house payment? I don't know the exact details of dad's house, so I couldn't tell you if that would have been the exact deal. But if you are doing it and saying, oh, I can't sell to my kids, I'm going to need a big chunk because I want my house paid for. Do you? What if they can pay your house payment for you? You know, like it's not in their name, but they're paying you enough every year that that makes the house payment. Can you still owner finance them and make more in interest than what you're paying to the bank? Yeah. So that was interesting. And also they were putting in 11% to their 401k. So they're absolutely maxing out their 401k, feeling very good about themselves for doing that. But then they get to go to the bank and borrow money for other stuff for farming, right? We have an operating note because all of our money is going to our 401k, and we probably don't want to work there the rest of our life. I can tell you that this guy is most likely not going to want to work there the rest of his life. And so fantastic, we're putting money there, and then someday we're going to quit and probably want access to it, and we're not going to be 59 and a half. So is it always the best option? Can we just put in what the match is and then take the rest and have liquidity of it, alleviating us from having to go to the bank? Okay. Hey, Nate, woohoo, he got in the house before I was done. Alberta, well, Canada's in the house. Welcome, Carol. All right, the next guy. Oh, this was interesting. I didn't know anything about potato farming, but holy macaroni, is that expensive. So I talked to a young guy who is working for dad, but also farming on his own again. And dad has lots of acres and lots of employees and quite a large operation. He has a lot of employees for a little amount of acres. And I was like, why does he have so many people? Well, he has a lot of manual labor stuff that he does. And so he needs all those people. But the son started farming as a hobby. So dad said, hey, you can just use my tractor for free. And now dad says, you're farming 100 and I think he's at like 130 acres or something, 160. And he's like, now it shouldn't be free anymore. You're putting a lot of hours on that tractor. And so he said, well, you know, we're trying to figure out, do I pay dad for the use of the tractor and I lease the tractor? Or do I just use a tractor for free, and then when it has to be replaced, I buy a new one? Okay, so I said, well, here's the deal. If you are going to lease a tractor from dad or not lease a tractor from dad, you have to figure that in as part of your operating expense. Because if you don't, are you really making money farming? The tractor is still an expense, right? Even if you own and pay cash for the combine, the tractor, whatever, there's still a cost to use that tractor. So if I was the dealership and you're leasing from me, that's a cost to doing business, right? Regardless if it's paid for it or not. So I said, put that cost in your books. So if dad says you don't need to lease the tractor, I want you to still be putting that money. If you don't do business with me, if you don't want a life insurance policy, let's still put that money into a savings account. So when it comes time to buy the tractor, at least you have a down payment, or maybe you have enough to buy the tractor, right? Because this kid is making a nice amount of money because he doesn't have a lot of those expenses. But are we being honest to make sure that those expenses are included in? So when it comes time to buy what we need, we've got that money. The other question that he had that was very interesting to me is it takes, I don't know exactly how many acres are in potatoes, but it's not 3,000 acres. I'm just going to guess and say 2, maybe. $8.5 million of operating inputs for the potatoes. 8.5 million. You guys, that is insane. And he said, how do I get to 8.5 million in like 20 years so that when dad is ready to quit, I don't have to go to the bank and borrow money for potatoes, because that's the only thing dad borrows money for. Everything else he's doing with cash, right? So I cringed a little bit because I'm not talking to dad and dad has no interest in any of it. And so now we're trying to help from the back end to say, hey, we got to help you. So when the transition goes, grandpa's still alive and grandpa's still involved. And so now when you take over from dad and you and your brother take over, and it's just the 2 of them, so that's pretty clean. They're both farming. How do you guys get the 8.5 million? And so we looked at, okay, just for funsies, I ran some illustrations at $100,000 a year. And I don't have those illustrations. I didn't save them to look at the actual numbers because I'm not that organized. But it was not 8.5 million. It was like in 20 years, he had about 3 million of cash value and about 4.5 million a death benefit. So I said, what's going to need to happen here in order for you to have 8 million is we're going to need some of your cash value on you. We're going to need death benefit of dad. And so dad has life insurance. We know that, even though dad and grandpa are not speaking about any kind of estate plan. No discussion to be had, or will they have? So we have a large operation, very profitable, with 0 communication. And so in that aspect, we need to prepare with, and the brother might need to come in, maybe him and the brother do a policy together, right? And they put money in together. Or at least maybe we have a little something. When dad passes, hopefully he has the death benefit so that the kid can roll it and use that so that they don't have this $8.5 million potato input cost that we're borrowing from the bank. The only way to turn dollars, that I'm aware of, the only way that we're going to be able to turn a discounted dollar like that is through life insurance. And dad is still young enough. If the money was there, we could very easily be buying $1 for about 40 cents on dad. $1, we're going to pay 40 cents income tax free. So at the end of the day, I said, I don't know that we can get you there in 20 years while dad's alive. Because dad doesn't want to participate in utilizing money differently. But your kids will definitely be in a position, even with inflation, we should be in a position where they're not having to go to the bank for potato inputs. Hopefully, the costs don't go up so much or something happens. We're talking like 2 generations away. However, even with $100,000 a year for, I don't remember how many years, we were still not at $8 million. But something is better than nothing, even if it was 2 million. That means we're only borrowing 6 from the bank instead of 2. That is a lot of interest that the bank is not getting. right? That is still $2 million of control on our side. So don't think it's all or nothing. Remember, a little is better than all, right? If you have a little bit of control, it's better than losing control of everything. Okay, oops. Right, Jenny? I don't know what the holy cow is about, but probably the potato costs. It's insane. Michigander. Hello, Christy. Hello, John. If cash value is used as a yearly operating loan, how do you get the money back into the policy for the next year? Well, if you're borrowing, I think I understand, Christina, but if you're going to borrow $1 million for operating and you sell commodities, you now have the $1 million to pay it back. So it's just like through the bank. If you're going to borrow $1 million from the bank, you sell commodities, you pay it back. If you say, how are you going to get the money back into the pod? So if that's not what you were asking, you might want to rephrase that for me, please. Okay. Today I had some super fun new clients as well. They have a very successful business. He grew up on a farm. He had an opportunity to buy some land where he grew up. So they did that, but the farm has not been profitable and it is driving them crazy because their other business is profitable. But here, the business, the family business that her family is in, they own 30, they each own like 33%. Her and her other family members. She has 2 other family members and then mom and dad who own like 1%. But it's killing me. You know the movie? I don't remember the movie. Killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. That's kind of how I felt. And that's how they felt. Because there is so much money in the family business and the other family members do not care to even talk about finances. This particular family member that basically runs the business on a day-to-day operations. She's the one doing all the books. They are the ones saying, hey, why do we have all this money? You know, we've got 7 figures sitting in a checking account, earning zilcho, and then they went to the bank to borrow money to buy land. And I said, well, why didn't you just borrow it from the business? Because the other family members have no idea. They would say, no, we don't want the 5%. You don't want the 5%? You guys could have made another $600,000-ish of interest and they don't care about that? Nope. They just say, we make enough money, I don't want any more out of the business. That is tough when you are in a business with people that don't understand the money and you can't make decisions to help the business even further. Right? Like, there is just no option. They can't even really do anything for tax write-offs because the other family members own equal parts and they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to learn anything about money. They don't even say, hey, the bank's only paying us like 0.5% interest. Nope. Don't even talk about it. Don't care. That is really, really tough in that situation because they have a super successful business and there's nothing they can do. The crazy thing is there are 5 family members, excluding mom and dad, 5 family members, key family members that work in that business. Nobody has insurance on anybody. Nobody is cross-insured. The company does not own life insurance on any of them. And I said, what happens if your husband dies? Because he is a key part of this business. He keeps the majority of this business going. And I said, what happens if he dies? Who takes over? Nobody. I said, how much revenue is a business going to lose? Huge, right? They had never thought of that because their accountant has never brought it up, who I disagreed with on many, many counts. And not because I'm an accountant, but because I've talked to my accountant about the very same things, and he was okay with me doing those things. And this accountant is so scared of getting an audit that he won't even let them legitimately write stuff off that should be written off because he's terrified the IRS is going to audit him. Pathetic. So anyway, I said, so it's a husband and a wife, and they are running like the day-to-day stuff. I said, so what happens if the wife dies, right? She's the business owner. He's the employee. I said, if you pass away, do you think that your husband is going to get up the next day and be like, all right, I got to go to work? No. So not only did you lose his production, that is key to the business, but you also lost yourself because you're going to lose him, not because he died. You're the one that died, so we lose you. But we lose him because he needs time to mourn your death. He is not going to get up tomorrow and be like, gotta go to work, right? I said, what happens if you pass away or what happens if your sister passes away and your brother-in-law who is not in the business wants to be bought out? I don't know. I said, what's the business worth? I don't know. I said, you don't know what her third is worth. You could have to end up forking over millions of dollars. The business doesn't have that kind of money. Now you have to have a loan. Everything you guys are doing is without a loan. They are operating with cash about $8 million a year. I just guessed at the numbers. She didn't tell me if that was correct or not, based on their gross income. I'm like, even if you're spending $8 million a year on inputs to the business, operating costs, purchasing goods, right? With cash, if that cash could earn you 4% over your lifetime, what is the value of that money, right? That is what Nelson teaches us. If you've not listened to my podcast, it's in this book. It's in this book. If you've not listened to my podcast, that is what Nelson is talking about. There is a value to the dollar. Cash is not king. I put it in my little calculator. $38 million in 40 years because they have about 40 years because they're only in their 40s. $38 million because the family does not care. What we're doing is good. We're making enough money. We don't want to be greedy. Really? Is it really being greedy? Or is it giving somebody else an opportunity because you could start another business? You could lend money to other people. You could do all kinds of awesome things with that to help other people. That's not being greedy. So we're just going to give up 30 million. Drop in the bucket. Like, it's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And they have been so successful. And their accountant hasn't helped them. I mean, so many things we talked about today were just mind-blowing to them and so new because they had not thought that way, right? She's like, I want to pay off my HELOC on my house. I don't like that. I want to pay off my land note. I don't like that. I don't like giving the bank that kind of interest. They are willing to put that money in a policy and borrow at a higher rate from the policy because they do not like the bank. Nelson is celebrating up there today. He's like, hallelujah, somebody got it, right? They don't care. They don't care if the interest rate in the policy is 4.76 and their loan from the bank is 3.5 because they want control. But the HELOC is a little bit different because they get to write the interest off and they need deductions. So they're like, well, we'll just keep the HELOC. That's fine. That's a home equity line of credit for those of you that don't know. So they're just going to keep the HELOC and they're not going to go to town. But I said cash is not king. Cash flow is king. So stop giving all this money and taking your bonuses from work and paying these big hundreds of thousands of dollars off. Stop doing that. And pay smaller amounts because now you have bigger amounts of money that you have liquidity to buy land, buy buildings. do other things with that and expand, because you think differently than your whole family, right? And I swear, like, those of you that call me, you're like the 1 out of 5 in the family. You're like the black sheep that thinks a little bit crazy, right? And everybody thinks you're crazy. And that's kind of how their family is, I think. Because he's like, I listened to your book, and then I listened to all your podcasts, and I knew we need to talk to this lady. One of the gentlemen that I talked to earlier today, or earlier this week, he was like, I've listened to your book 3 times and I've listened to all your podcasts. Unbelievable how much information he consumed 3 times listening. So if you have the audiobook, if you have the book, read it more than once. It's not just one read, right? You can read it more than one time. So much more information there. So back to this couple. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked. Back to this couple. They are farming. They are doing some crop share with his brother. His brother's farming some of that ground. And he's like, I like the tax write-off. This is great. I'm losing money and I got a tax write-off, but I'm losing money. This farm should be able to pay for itself, right? Because it's good business. The farm should be able to pay for itself. So he called a marketing guy and said, hey, I want to figure out what you're doing and what I'm doing wrong. So I need help marketing this grain, because what I'm doing, I'm not doing it right. And if you don't know anything about marketing grain and not just hauling it to the elevator and selling it, I did a podcast 3-4 podcasts back with Tim Bickett, and he really explains it well. I don't care who you use for marketing. I get nothing from Ag Resource Management. I am not I'm not in their system in any way, shape, or form. I just am really intrigued by the way they're doing it, which is a little bit different than what I've heard from everybody else. And so get a hold of somebody that does marketing and educate yourself and meet with them and figure it out. But he was smart enough to know, I am not marketing my grain correctly, and this farm should be paying for itself. Great, we make a bunch of money over here, but that doesn't give us an excuse that we need to be paying personal money for this farm ground, because it should be paying for itself, right? Christina, the premium and the loan repayment is completely different. So when you take a loan from the policy, we have to pay the loan back, and then yes, next year we have to pay premium. Yep. So it's a slow process to get that cash value where we need to have it, so that it is enough to have all the operating. And there's a fine line between how much we can put in. We can't put, like, if you have $1 million of operating a year, we can't put $1 million into the policy, because we can't borrow $1 million, pay $1 million back for a loan, and then have $1 million worth of premium. That's $2 million a year. Okay, so we have to start small and then build it up to get there. But that's what we go over in the meeting, that the free consultation that you guys can have with me if you've read the book. I look at all those numbers to kind of see where are we at, so that we have an opportunity to start somewhere, and where is comfortable, right? Like a lot of people I talked to this week, we were anywhere, some of the younger people, we were like $6,000-$8,000 a year of premium. Other people that had the successful businesses, we might have been more at like $40,000 a year. And so it really just depends where you're at, and what you're comfortable with. So, which brings me to one of the other clients I had this week. He was a really young guy, not a farmer, he was an engineer for a company that has a really good match. And he wanted to just be more conservative, right? And he doesn't really have any debt. They're saving up a ton of money for their first house to use as a down payment. And he doesn't hate the market like I hate the market. He was okay with the market, and the company he works for is known. It's a pretty big company. They are known to have really good matches for 401k. And so I said, if you don't want to give up the match, just don't max it out. Because I asked him, I said, what intrigued you about this process? Right? Because when I talk to farmers, I pretty much know, like, what intrigues you is getting away from the bank, getting back control, building money for operating, taking over, right? But what intrigues a guy that doesn't want to farm, came from a farm, but he doesn't care to farm. He's just doing his engineer thing. And he said, I want liquidity of money. Okay. So we want the liquidity of the money. So we really talked a lot with him about not maxing out everything. Can some take what you got for your match, and then the rest, can we move it into a life insurance policy? And then you can buy rental properties. He wants to retire early at like 55-ish. And so where are we going to be? How much do we need to save at that point? And then we really had, I have these fancy calculators, and I can say, okay, if you have X amount of money in retirement and the market does an average of XYZ, so the market does a 17% rate of return, what does that look like if we take the actual years of what is going on? And I was able to show him that an average means nothing when you plug the actual numbers in. And I would absolutely love to share my screen with you and show you that. But you guys, I am not that smart. I'm just looking here to see if there's something obvious that says share screen. Nope. So I can't share it because this is very confusing. It would be so much easier to see. But I said, this isn't all or nothing, right? I had a client the other day that said, Mary Jo, I don't know how much I want to do. I just haven't drank all the Kool-Aid. And I said, that's awesome. It doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm swimming in the Kool-Aid. I 100% believe in what I do. I have 100% of our money in life insurance. I don't have any of it in IRAs. I have nothing in the stock market, and I never will. Because I want guarantees. I want to make sure that money is going to be there. And I think the death benefit is important. But if you want some money in the market, that is absolutely fantastic. Because if the market makes a negative return in retirement, then maybe you want to go to your policy. You can use both. And he said, oh, I was wondering if this was all or nothing. No, and it's not all or nothing for one reason. I cannot stand financial advisors who tell you you can't have your money. You shouldn't be going to buy whole life insurance. Mary Jo's an idiot, right? I have had clients fired. They have gotten letters in the mail from their financial advisor saying, I am sorry, I cannot do business with you anymore, because they bought a whole life insurance policy and did not take 100% of this guy's advice. Whose money is it? Do we need to kindly remind people that that is my money? If I give you money as a financial advisor, that's my money. I ultimately get to decide if I get it back or not. The only people that can hold my money is the bank. Because when we actually deposit money in the bank, they don't have to give it back to us. But they do. But they don't have to, right? It's actually easier to get money from the bank in some cases than these financial advisors, bunch of yahoos. So I'm not going to sit here and say you cannot be putting money into 401ks and IRAs. On the contrary, do whatever you want. It's your money. Why not have the best of both worlds if you want to play the best of both worlds? Doesn't matter to me. I can help you on this side of it, and somebody else can help you on the other side. And why can't we all just work together, right? Okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you about my people that own their really successful business. So she said, well, how are we going to get money out of the business? I'm like, well, you can bonus yourself. So if you have a farm operation that you have employees and all those employees are getting IRA money, well, when you give somebody 401k, everybody has to get the same amount, or it has to be offered to everybody, right? So if I'm going to do a bonus, do I have to offer that to everybody? There is this thing called the executive bonus plan, and it is basically set up for allowing discrimination of how I can process the money, or how I can contribute money to executives differently than all employees. So executives are important to a business, less likely to be replaceable or harder to be replaceable, or their value is more to that business. And so when you do an executive bonus plan, you can get money out of the company by bonusing the employee. And then that can go into a life insurance policy. Now, I also heard from a client this week who is a teacher at a local school here, and I don't know exactly what she teaches. I don't recall, but she doesn't want the match anymore. So I'm wondering if she's not an actual like state employee, because that's a pension. But they're giving her a match, and she said, "Can you just give me the cash?" And they said, "We are happy to not pay you the match, but we want to pay the money directly to the life insurance company. We can't give it to you, but we can give you that match in the form of cash, but the check has to go directly to the life insurance company." How awesome is that? Because I don't care if I get it or not. I want it to go to my life insurance policy. And so we were able to make sure that they got the information they needed to send the check to the life insurance company, because the life insurance company does not care who pays that premium. It doesn't matter to them. As long as they're getting payment for that premium, they're going to apply it to the policy that says, please apply to policy, blah, 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 right? So very cool that her employer allowed that. And I have a lot of employees that don't want the match. And I encourage all of them. If you work for a small to medium-sized business, can you talk to HR? Can you talk to the owner of the company and say, you know what, I really appreciate the match, but I don't believe in the market. I want liquidity. I want guarantees. I want control of those loans. Can you just give me the money in the form of a bonus? I'll pay taxes on it. I'll take the income. That's okay. So lots of options there as well. All right, we're coming up to an hour. I have 3 more that I've met with more people, but I just want to go over these 3. Okay. So I also met with another gentleman that I talked to about a year ago. He was not ready to start and called me again and said, hey, I'd just like to visit again. But remember, I'm a Dave Ramsey fan. And I'm like, okay. So we were visiting, and this was very interesting that he has a little bit of credit card debt. There was about $4,000 of credit card debt at about 15%. And that was all due to fabulous COVID, right? His wife's job or her business kind of got shut down. And so they had to live off of credit cards for a little while. So they need about $4,000 of operating. And the bank won't give him the money because he's got sheep and goats. And so the bank won't give him the money. And he's like, so we're just really trying to get this credit card paid off. And we're just paying a lot of extra money on it a month. And I said, okay, great. We're putting $800 a month to it. Not going to take us long to get that paid off, right? But I'm like, you got like 8,000 in your 401k. Yeah, but Dave Ramsey, right? Dave Ramsey says we need a 401k. Doesn't have enough in savings. So I said, well, why don't you, I said, I've never done this. I got clients that do it. Why don't you just roll it to another 0% interest credit card? Like, it's maybe a 3% fee or something, but at least then you're not paying 15% and you might have another, 12 months to get that paid off, and then just pay the minimum amount. Because he can buy a ewe for $250, which is going to have 2 lambs. Guess what he gets per lamb? $250. He makes $500. It's a 50% profit. Is his credit card making him a 50% rate of return? Nope. Is his 401k that he's contributing to making him a 50% rate of return? Nope. But what's making him money right now? Selling lamb, sheep, and beef direct to consumer. So why would you not roll it to a 0% card, take a loan against the 401k, pay it off? The 401k loan is going to be less. Do a HELOC. He has equity in his house. Do a HELOC. Refinance the house to get the money out of there to use for operating. So if he does a HELOC, he can use that for operating, and he doesn't have to tell the bank what he's using it for. I have clients using HELOCs for operating. Oh, he's like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, I never thought of that. Well, where's Dave Ramsey when we need him for ideas like this? Where's Dave Ramsey when we're talking about how to create cash flow? Right? Because guess what? The homeless guy on the street is debt-free as well. But we need cash flow. We want cash flow. I love Dave in the aspect of he's teaching us how to look at our budget and how to budget things. But what he's not teaching us how to do is get wealthy. He's teaching us how to be debt-free. And all of these things that I shared with this gentleman are not new things. They're just things that he's not heard because of the outside noise he's listening to, right? And sometimes we get stuck with our blinders on and we just can't see the other things. So I got an email, or I got a message from him. And I'm going to see if I can, I can't go there because I have it on this screen. Anyway, I got a message from him. It was not more than 2 hours later probably. And he's like, boom, I rolled to a 0% card. I think he said he started a HELOC. And there was one other thing that we suggested he do, and he did it. Like right now it worked, right? In a small hour meeting, we took care of the majority of the problems he was having. And most likely got him money for operating. Good gosh, I tell people all the time, if you're starting a business, a small business like that, go get a 0% interest credit card for 12 months or 15 months or 18 months and use that to start. Just don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get yourself in trouble, okay? If you're going to rack that thing up and not pay it, no, don't get one. But take advantage of that 0% interest. And the other thing he didn't know is that he didn't know if his credit card had points. And so I'm like, what? Like, your credit card doesn't have points? Well, I don't know what kind of credit card he had. And you can only, if your credit's not good, you can't get better or different types of credit cards. But I have points on all of my credit cards. So I put all of my expenses, my business expenses, go on a credit card every month. Almost all of them. Because I love the points. I pay my credit card off every month, And then I use the points for gift cards. Okay. Now, if you get a gift card from me, I actually paid for that gift card. But if you are a family member, I most likely redeemed my points for that gift card. Because I want to buy the gift card because it's a business expense if it's for business purposes. But I can't write that gift card off if I'm going to give one to you for your birthday or for Christmas. So my family members get gift cards that I use points for that were basically free because I didn't pay any interest on that credit card. Call me frugal all day long. I don't care. They want gift cards. They don't want me to go thinking and shopping. And so here's your gift card. Then I had a meeting with some existing clients. They have been clients for 8 years. And it's funny because I've dealt with both of them. I talk to both of them all the time. They're actually friends of ours. And he was just not he doesn't really always pay attention. She kind of takes care of it. It's just not an interest to him. Money is not an interest. I had a couple of those this week. It was actually the wife who was just like, yeah, whatever. He handles it all. And so it was funny because 8 years in, I looked at their illustration that was given to them 8 years ago. Guess what? Their projected cash value on the non-guaranteed side with the dividend, their projected cash value with dividend is right on point. If not, it's probably like $100 or $200 more. Sweet. You know what? We had a crash in April, right? The market fell in April. For the last 8 years, they've not had to worry about this. And they have used their policies a lot. A lot. The funniest thing is he said to me, why are we talking about dying? And I said, well, because it's life insurance. There's going to be a death benefit when she dies. And he's like, well, I thought we were talking about retirement. I said, we are. Because the cash value that you've been using and paying back has a death benefit as well. Because it's life insurance. And he's like, oh, I just got that. And so, a good example of why you should talk to me more. Because clearly we are not talking enough. And he has just always let her handle it until all this crisis stuff is going on. And he is saying, oh my God, what are we going to have for retirement? He's like, we're not going to have enough. I said, right, you need to put more in. And so then we got to talking about they're paying private tuition now. I said, okay, how much is a private tuition? $10,000. I said, well, you told me you couldn't afford a $10,000 policy, but now you can afford a $10,000 tuition. So you are willing to beat Parkinson's law to put your kids through a private school, but you're not willing to beat Parkinson's law to have retirement. I said, if you want to be honest and you want to be an honest banker, right? When the kids move back to public school, you need to take that $10,000 and put it in a policy. Your premium on your current policy is going to go down. They've paid 8 years full premium and now their premium has to be reduced. Why? Because we've hit the MEC line, modified endowment contract. If we put too much money to cash value, these things will grow taxable. So we're at that line. We need to decrease what they're putting in. So another $4,000 a year can't go into a policy next year. Guess what? We need to start another policy, right? If you want to know what the MEC line is, that's in here too. And then I had some new clients that were really questioning, how does convertible term work? And so I am not 100% against term insurance. I write a ton of term insurance, but I write convertible term, which means if you have $1 million of term death benefit, we can convert that to $1 million of whole life death benefit. And there are reasons why we want to do that. And so sometimes if we're going to buy a policy on dad and we're 28 years old and we're going to buy a policy on dad and we don't have insurance on ourselves, we're going to do term on ourselves and whole life on dad because we just don't have enough money to do everything. And then as we get older, we're going to take my $1 million and I'm going to convert that to whole life. I can convert anything under $1 million. I can convert to 3 different policies up to $1 million. I can convert to 1 policy up to $1 million. I just can't convert anything over $1 million. And so if you've not heard of convertible term, I do a lot of that. And that is 1, to give us coverage today, and 2, it's cheap, right? And 3, it guarantees our insurability. So if we're healthy today, then we have insurance at that health rating for the life of that term to convert, and we can convert it. So if I get preferred health today, I can convert it to preferred health in 15 years from now. The other thing that I did, one of the guys I met with today or this week, he had a really bad family history, like awful. Nobody lived past like 65. And so I was like, whoa, we need some term insurance and we need a lot. Whatever your human life value is, we need the max amount of insurance we can get on you to convert later, because chances are in the next 20 years, you could be dead. Like, not good, right? But while you're healthy today, we need to make sure that we can get insurance on you. And it shouldn't be something major enough that his family history should affect it, but it could, definitely, for sure it could. So lots of things to look at and think about. Okay, I am over. I mean, I try to keep this to an hour and I talk fast, you guys. So, so I hope that was helpful, but that is all the meetings I'm going to go over. I had others, but I'm just not going to have time to get to them all. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys like these, please let me know, because I plan to keep doing them on Thursdays at 8:30 if we can get that set. If you have not tuned into the podcast, do that. Go download Farming Without the Bank. That's a podcast. It's also on YouTube. I believe the YouTube is under Mary Jo Irmen. I'm pretty sure it's under Mary Jo Irmen. So go find Mary Jo Irmen, subscribe there. All the podcasts get uploaded there as well. But that's going to also give you lots more information. I've just heard so much good feedback about those and how they really help and are really educating people. If you have not gotten Farming Without the Bank, do that. If you are not a farmer, you can go get Wealth Without the Bank or Wall Street. They're all on farmingwithoutthebank.com. I highly suggest getting both of them. So let me grab. See, I was so not prepared. I was busy making notes. I would suggest getting the bundle, even adding the audio in there, right? So you can get Farming Without the Bank audio, and then Nelson's. I have had a lot of people ask me this week if Nelson's book is on audio, and it is not. They have a CD, like an actual CD. David, I love you. That is Nelson's son-in-law. I love David. But it's not an actual reading of the book. And it's on a CD. And I don't know about you all, but I don't even have a computer I can put a CD in anymore. So you could download it to something. I'm not that smart to know how to do that, but I suppose you could download it to a USB and move it over. I don't know, too much work for me. So I'm trying to convince him to put Nelson's book on audio, but as of right now, they don't have anything on audio. So go over to farmingwithoutthebank.com and grab that there. I will actually put it in the notes there so you guys can see that. Hey Trudy from Canada, we got a couple Canadians. Brooklyn, love these going over clients. Thanks, Brooklyn. Hey Randall, desperately in need of rain. Us too. I hope you get some rain. Is it on their website? I got it there. It is on their website. I got it there. Brooklyn, the audio CD. I just asked David today if it is an actual reading, and he told me it is not. So if that is something that you got there, let me know what that was like. Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me post the link. Maybe it did. Whatever. farmingwithoutthebank.com, y'all. Oh, there it went. Now it liked me. Okay. You guys have, if you have questions, comments, whatever, let me know. If you have family members that are not farmers, they are business owners, they are employees, I have a second book, Wealth Without the Bank or Wall Street. That is made for those people because it doesn't have any farm analogies. The numbers are a little bit smaller. You know, Christmas is right around the corner. So share that with them as well. That would be awesome. Oh, okay. Well, Brooklyn knows more than I do. Thank you, Brooklyn. That website is infinitebanking.org, but she said it's like yours, a real reading of the book on the Institute's website. Okay, so you can go to infinitebanking.org and apparently you can get the audiobook there. I'm going to have to go look at that because David told me not. Anyway, okay, so whatever you want, you can get. You can also get Nelson's book off of my website. I do recommend buying the actual book because there's so many numbers in it and there's so much highlighting. Also, if you get the book, the actual physical book, I am doing book reviews on Nelson's book chapter by chapter. And so you can kind of go through and then you can see where I've got highlights and stuff. You can kind of go through and just kind of follow along, and it just makes a lot more sense when somebody reviews it. I can't tell you how many times I've read that book, and every single time I see something different or I learn something different because I'm in a different spot at that time. So, okay, that is all I have to say tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for asking questions and telling me where you're from. I love it when, oh, thank you, Brooklyn. Gosh, I'm going to hire her. Thank you for tuning in, asking questions, talking to me. I absolutely love it. And so we will see you here next Thursday. Be sure that you click the get notification thing when I go live so that you can get the notifications and a good reminder of the fact that we're going live and reviewing meetings again for the week. Okay, y'all, I hope that those of you in the lines of nasty weather are safe, and those of you that need rain, get rain. We are seriously thinking about everybody in the path of this tornado and the fires and all this other junk that's going on. So have a great night, and we'll see you in a week. Talk to you later.